National Convention, which US always cites as a right that they can do under the argument of self-defense. Post 9/11, this has been the strategy of the United States. Facilities were linked to Iran and the Revolutionary Guards, and that is why they were targeted. That's what has been said. US currently deploys about 900 troops in the Middle East, and perhaps this could increase if the fears are true about the escalation of conflict in the times to come. Iran, the finance minister there has issued a warning to the United States, saying that if this escalates, Iran will not hesitate in taking any kind of step in the national interest. If Israel doesn't stop, US won't be spared. Iran and Israel are sworn enemies, internationally speaking, and on every possible front that you can think of. In Gaza, the war between Israel and Hamas has only escalated, claiming the life of about 7,000 people. About 2,900 children have lost their lives so far. It's combined Israel-Gaza death toll about 7,000 plus. As I said earlier, the humanitarian crisis, of course, is the biggest concern. There is also a travel advisory by the US which has been issued on Lebanon, and no wonder, because there's a tension on a border after Hezbollah fired certain rockets on the 8th of October, and certain parts and border regions of Lebanon are also under a high alert. The fear that this could escalate into a regional conflict. So that's how it's playing out so far. You already know the kind of support Israel has, whether it's the United States of America, United Kingdom, Germany, France. Various heads of the states have visited Israel and vowed their support. There's also a standoff with the United Nations after the statement of Anthony Guterres, and he said that we need to look at this from a humanitarian perspective, something that did not go down well with Israel also. And moving forward, to what extent will this crisis inflate is the key question, because the biggest fear, as I said, is that it becomes a regional conflict. In the times to come, if there's an escalation from the side of Iran, if US helps in, pushes more troops on the ground, especially in the Middle Eastern region, that's a point of concern. There are also statements that have come in from the international bodies. Various countries, including India, have reasserted that, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself and has supported the actions of Israel. But at the same time, the humanitarian crisis also needs to be looked into. The Palestinian cause is something that the world has been sympathetic to, but of late, after this attack and strike by Hamas, where civilians were targeted, hospital children, women in Israel were targeted, the kind of sympathy that we have seen traditionally with the Palestinian cause is some way has waned off. If this turns into a regional conflict, it has all kind of repercussions and implications, including regional peace and security, economic repercussions. In fact, Joe Biden is on record to say that after G20, the kind of corridor which is being talked about, or the kind of economic activities which are being talked about, especially the corridor from India right up to the heart of Europe, is one reason why terrorists are so rattled and they have done what they have done. My colleague Abhishek Jha joining us on the broadcast. Abhishek, the strikes that have happened in Syria on Iranian targets or the facilities that were linked to Iran, and allegedly the Iranian Revolutionary Guards were operating from there, is this the escalation that the world was afraid of?
Well, we know that USA has been appealing for the powers in the region that they should.
We'll try and connect with Abhishek in just a bit, the problem with bad audio. But as Abhishek was pointing out, there are various facets to the story, and one of the biggest facets is that United States of America has taken a very clear position when it comes to Israel and supporting the Israeli cause. At the same time, the strikes that have happened in Syria is a cause of concern because it clearly denotes the escalation of conflict which has happened. Let's cut across to some latest news coming in. There's an exclusive bit of information that our investigating editor Manoj Gupta gets for us. India is engaging with all stakeholders when it comes to the Israel-Palestine war. India has reasserted on multiple occasions that the focus for India, along with various other regional partners, is to ensure peace and stability. While there's a unilateral support, unequivocal support that we have made to the Israelis, there was also humanitarian aid that was sent to Palestine to ensure that the humanitarian problem or the humanitarian crisis is controlled. Right now, India, as one of the key global players, is engaging with all kinds of stakeholders. Abhishek is back with us on the broadcast. Abhishek, India is engaging with the Middle East, Saudi, Egypt and UAE for a peaceful region.
Well, we have seen U.S. forces amassing a lot of ammunition, and major battleships are also on the way to Mediterranean Sea. And that looks like USA is preparing for something that could happen major in that region. Initially, in the last 10 days or so, multiple attempts have been made by some militias present in the region, which are backed by Iran, as per the USA, who have tried to attack, U.S. positions. And in one of that attack, about 20 U.S. soldiers were also injured. Now we have also seen some missiles being attacked on the U.S. Around Red Sea, which was also dealt with. Seeing the latest development, USA has 10 patriotic missile and THAAD batteries there. About 900 US troops are on the way. So it looks like there could be some escalation, and countries are preparing themselves for that. Now Israel is dealing with the two-pronged war. One is happening at the southern border with Hamas. Another one unfolding at the northern border with Hezbollah. Hezbollah is well-trained there. They are equipped with modern, artilleries and long-range guided missile, and that could give some trouble to the Israeli forces. But so far, not much has been done from the Hezbollah side. We have seen Israeli army attacking Hezbollah position and, in a way, countering or doing preemptive attack on Hezbollah position. But how this entire situation will unfold, that remains to be seen, because now the regional sympathy is quickly turning towards Palestinian cause because of the massive civilian casualties that the world has seen there. About 7,000 Palestinians. That is the figure given by Gaza authorities, that 7,000 plus Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. And that is a huge casualty that the world is now acknowledging and noticing as a major humanitarian crisis that is emerging in Gaza.
Right. Abhishek, even earlier when we were talking about the strikes that have been done in Syria on Iranian targets, is that an escalation of a conflict that the entire world was worried about? How does this really weave into the broader geopolitical aspects that we've been speaking of?
Well, it's been almost 10 years since the war in Syria has been going on, with al-Assad regime being backed by Russia and Iran. Also, USA has been backing the rebel forces, some Kurdish sometimes. Then we saw in between there was this ISS upsurge, which was also dealt with, sometimes backed by Iran, sometimes backed by USA. But currently, once again, the division is very much clear. There is rebellious forces which are being backed by USA and Israel. Then there is the Assad regime, which is backed by Iran and Russia. So if USA tries to harm directly the Syrian government, then it will clearly not go down well with Russia and Iran. Recently, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was in Tehran, where he did meet with the local leaders, and foreign ministers of Iran and Turkey and others were also present. So the entire regional conflict is being discussed at a higher level also among the major powers in the world. We have also reported that some of the Chinese battleships are also on the way to Mediterranean Sea. So probably that is also another stakeholder in the entire geopolitical shift that is happening there. We have to see how does U.S. tries to ensure that whatever ships or whatever ammunition it is sending in the region works as only deterrent and doesn't work as an escalatory or instigating force to the other nations present in the region. That is what at least USA side has been saying, that they are sending all these reinforcement to deter any possible full-fledged war and to also strengthen its presence.
All right, Abhishek, can I request you to please stay with us on the broadcast? I'll quickly take our viewers through some more information which is coming in. And this is about the kind of efforts India is making, what are the concerns that India has really taken cognizance of. And we're engaging with all the stakeholders. The fact that we're talking to multiple partners here, including the UAE, the Egyptian authorities, Saudi, UAE, multiple countries. It is in the interest of all these countries, including India, to have a peaceful West Asia, and more importantly, not to have a full-blown war out there. Of course, the conflict has existed ever since the inception of Israel. India is aware that Israel-Palestine is a territorial issue, as I said, a long-pending territorial issue ever since the birth of the country called Israel. And a two-nation solution is something that India has historically supported other than the Muslim world. That was a bold position that India took, and India continues to stand with that position that they had taken. India is backing Israel because of the terror attack. There's been a clear narrative that the reason why there's a strong push that has been given to whatever Israel is doing, or an unequivocal support that has come in, because India has taken a strong line when it comes to any form of terror. Not intervening diplomatically or militarily. It's going to be soft diplomatic efforts that India is making at the regional forums, engaging with different partners, ensuring that conversations happen in the right direction to ensure peace and stability. Terror attack by Hamas on Israel is wrong. At the same time, that didn't stop India from sending the humanitarian aid that it did. And Israel has every right to defend its citizen. That's the position that India has taken very, very categorically as far as this entire situation is concerned. But it has been 21 days since Israel-Hamas war broke out. And Israel, of course, decided to respond in full measure, and it said that it's going to conduct ground operations in Gaza Strip. Those ground operations are underway, and the casualty reported from the Gaza Strip is about 7,000. We also saw how there were certain strikes that happened at hospitals that claimed various lives. Israel categorically denied and said this was not a missile or this was not something that the Israeli Defense Forces did. This was a misfire that happened from the side of Hamas or any other terror elements which are operating from there. But the humanitarian crisis is only mounting. The number of children who are dead, that toll officially has gone to 2,900. The access to basic drinking water, hospitals, facilities, and various other basic civic amenities are not available to the people living in Gaza. It's a densely populated area, both West Bank and Gaza Strip. In fact, the ground offensive which is being conducted by Israel, a lot of residents have been asked to flee the northern parts and push themselves to the southern side. That has been the alert that the Israeli Defense Forces have put out. There are certain targeted killings of the Hamas leaders that were also carried out by the Israeli Defense Forces. But the fact that the civilian casualty has gone up, the death toll is only going up, is a cause for concern. Let's listen into some reactions coming in.
We are raining hellfire on Hamas. We've already killed thousands of terrorists, and this is only the beginning. Simultaneously, we are preparing for a ground invasion. I will not elaborate on when, how, or how many. I will also not elaborate on the various calculations we're making, which the public is mostly unaware of, and that is how things should be.
Australia unequivocally condemns the terrorism of Hamas. We grieve for the loss of every innocent life, whether that be Israeli or Palestinian. In times of crisis, respect for international humanitarian law is paramount. It is a recognition of our common humanity, and I commend the President for his leadership that he has shown in the example that he has set. Today I announce that Australia will provide an additional $15 million in humanitarian assistance for civilians in Gaza. This adds to the $10 million Australia has already committed and will help deliver life-saving assistance such as emergency water and medical services.
My colleague Abhishek continues to be with us on the broadcast. Abhishek, 2,900, more than that children dead in Gaza Strip. The humanitarian crisis is only increasing. What can we expect in the days to come?
Well, the humanitarian crisis is something that has taken the world's attention gradually, and the sympathy that has emerged, that had actually emerged in the wake of terrorist attack on Israel, is quickly shifting towards sympathy towards the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The world leaders have traveled to Tel Aviv, like President Biden, the Prime Minister Sunak, and the President Emmanuel Macron as well. While they have been trying to discredit the situation and calling for, not going for a full-fledged war, they have also been expressing their concern for the humanitarian crisis that is emerging in Gaza. The world is also sending a lot of aid and assistance for the people of Gaza, but then there are issues at the border points. Only Egyptian border, Al-Rafah, can allow these humanitarian aid to go inside Gaza, and they are doing a lot of back and forth in allowing those humanitarian aid. So the people and the problem of Gaza remains almost the same as it were a week ago, a very little drop in the ocean. That is what the UN officials have said about the number of aid vehicles that were allowed inside Gaza in the last 2-3 days. But what is the ground offensive that we have seen from the Israeli side in the last 2 days? There were 2 attempts at least from the Israeli forces to enter Gaza. One was on the early hours of Thursday, and after a few hours of being there and trying to gauge the situation, the forces came back. They had gone there with tanks and mechanical vehicles and other hardware that could to propel any possibility of being attacked also. So they were quite defensive. But how soon a full-fledged ground invasion will happen in Gaza, that remains to be seen, because the number of casualties is going to be very high on both the sides, because Hamas forces are also well entrenched and at a very comfortable position if the Israeli forces try to attack them inside Gaza by ground forces. In fact, they have been reports that they are waiting for Israeli forces to enter Gaza, and they have laid down all the mines and mesh of it, and that will take Israeli forces by surprise. So in a way, Israeli forces are trying to avoid any such casualties. Now we have also about 222 hostages in Israel. That is again a solid point through which Hamas can arm twist Israel right now, because the world is putting pressure on Israel also not to go full steam against Hamas, because the life of these 22 hostages are also very important. They also need to be saved. So there are multiple negotiations also going on. At the same time, we do see Hamas firing rockets on the Israeli location, Israel trying to counter them, and at times targeting building or infrastructure or civilian infrastructure in Hamas, which is causing a lot of casualties, killing children, women, elderly, and all. About more than 7,000 people have already been killed. Also, USA has been sending all the warships in the region. So again, the situation remains very fluid, and human casualties continues to grow in the region.
Getting us all the details on that very important story. Thank you, Abhishek, for joining us on the broadcast and getting us all that perspective. CNN's Laura Aguirre gets us this report on how the war has hindered supplies and basic humanitarian aid that should reach the residents. Have a look at the special report.
That they could be trying to set up an ambush for our forces.
The Israel Defense Forces are calling their overnight tank raid into northern Gaza preparation for a larger military offensive. When that will happen, still unknown, as is the fate of more than 200 hostages, including Americans, still held by Hamas. Well over 1 million civilians are displaced. Many have little to no access to shelter, food, water, or medicine.
Assistance must be able to flow into Gaza. It means humanitarian pauses must be considered.
While the international community pressures Israel for a pause, its plans for a ground incursion are underway.
When we go into Gaza, in the continuation of the fighting, we will exact the full price from the murderers.
Humanitarian agencies are sounding the alarm about conditions in Gaza. A key issue, the lack of fuel, which Israel is blocking from entering Gaza over fears Hamas will use it to launch more attacks. The main UN agency in the area says it will have to halt operations within hours if fuel is not delivered.
We're being pushed to the brink. We are still hopeful that an urgent shipment of fuel does come in so that we're not forced to stop humanitarian services and assistance to people in need.
The world community really needs to pay attention to this. We have got to get in there so we can help these people so they don't die.
Frantic callers knew what was going on immediately. Caller after caller understood and pleaded for help. It was a deliberate terrorist attack. Calls rang out in this busy Jerusalem call center at the headquarters of United Hatzalah, or United Rescue. The all-volunteer first responders group is nearly 7,000 strong across Israel, using high-tech tracking and communications tools to reach emergencies as fast as possible, treating patients free of charge and getting to them quicker than, say, the National Ambulance Service here.
I was here at 7:15 in the morning. We send out everyone, just go out, wear any protection gear you have, take your medical equipment with you, take your gun if you have one.
Founder Eli Beer says the morning of October 7th, more than 1,000 team members did just that.
Everyone was out, no matter if the Jews or Arabs or Christian, they were all out saving lives.
Videos taken by the group that day show Hatzalah volunteers who rushed into regions under attack. In the first 14 days of war, United Hatzalah says it dispatched at least 300 response vehicles, including helicopters, ambulances, and these specially equipped ambucycles that can weave between traffic with supplies. More than 3,000 people have been treated, according to United Hatzalah. But not all of them could be saved. 2 of their own were murdered that day. One, a medic with an elite unit of the Israeli army, was killed in action. The other, 23-year-old Awad Darwasha, was working at the Nova Music Festival as a medic.
Everyone was running away. He stayed with this young girl who was bleeding, trying to stop her bleeding because she had 3 or 4 bullets in her, and he was trying to save her, and then the terrorists came and caught him, and they realized he was an Arab. And he was wearing this vest with the Israeli flag on it. It took us a couple of days to find out where he is because they threw him in a ditch. It was unrecognizable. He was such a beautiful young boy.
The terrorists tortured Dr. Tarek Abu Arar, a Bedouin who was driving into danger to try to help anyone who needed it. He was ambushed by terrorists when he stopped to help what he thought was a patient in need.
And when he came, he started treating people. He took out his equipment, and they captured him. And they hung him. They tied him to a pole, a light pole, and he was there for 9 hours, tied into the back. They shot his legs, he was injured. We actually found him hours later, and he was, thank God he's okay.
Beer started United Hatzalah as a teenager 35 years ago. He has responded to countless scenes of horror and gore and grotesque scenes of terrorism. But he says nothing could have prepared him for what he saw in the aftermath of October 7th.
I'm doing this for so many years, and I've been to the worst bomb attacks and terror attacks and car accidents in my life. If you put all these attacks together for 35 years and all the gruesome stuff I saw, it comes nothing compared to one day, October 7th, the day I saw the south of Israel. I never imagined in my life I'll ever see I never imagined I could see a Holocaust. I used to see the Holocaust in the museum in black and white. I saw it in color. I saw people that were torn apart to pieces. They literally wanted to torture them and to humiliate their bodies. Things that I saw that I will never ever forget. I still smelling the smell of the flesh, of the burned flesh. A lot of the victims were burned. And I don't know why they did this, but they started burning people. Maybe they shouldn't be recognized. They were just going around shooting and killing people. After that, just torturing their bodies. And they came back home with pictures of Jews murdered. That's why they came. They wanted to humiliate the Jews in the world. Say, look what we did to the Jews. They wanted to cause another Holocaust here in Israel.
We'll continue getting you all those international reports and voices here on CNN News 18. For now, slipping into a very short break on The Nation at 5. Stay tuned, stay with us.
साथी हमारा है केंद्रीय मंत्री बनवाने में मेरी भूमिका थी उनको
And as far as I'm concerned, whatever job I've been given, whether it's in Jaipur or Delhi, in the organization or in the government, I've done my fullest.
उन्हें गठबंधन बनाया इंडी गठबंधन जब बाढ़ आती है तो जान बचाने के लिए एक ही पेड़ पे आदमी भी लिपट जाता है सांप भी बैठ जाता है
I've run elections for 44 years and they are going to preach to me where I am from. It's rubbish.
55 वर्ष तो इन्होंने जनता को सबक सिखाया. अब इनको होड़ लगी है मुझे सबक सिखाने के लिए. जवाब इनको जनता से ही मिलेगा.
दिग्विजय सिंह ने कहा है कि आप एक नौटंकी कर रहे हैं. आपको बुरा लगा ये सुन?
मुझे अंतरात्मा पे जैसे चोट की हो किसी.
Where the Iranian IRGC, the Iranian guards are using these facilities to support Syria's government right now, and this is also happening in the wake of in the last 1.5 weeks several attacks have happened on US forces present in the area, and with the latest escalation that one can witness happening in Middle East, US is also trying to send about 900 US troops that will be deployed in CENTCOM, and they are not going to Israel, by the way. And 16 attacks that USA has faced in Iraq and Syria in the last 10 days or 10 to 15 days has been a reason why USA is deploying another warship also in the region, sending about 900 troops, sending THAAD batteries, patriotic missiles and other weaponries that could not only defend US forces in the region but also can provide a deterrence in the region. That is what US government has been saying. Meanwhile, the situation in Syria and in Middle East remains very fluid. There have been multiple attacks on US forces in the last few days, and in one of those attacks about 21 US personnel were injured also, and these responses that USA have been doing our USA side has saying that these are because of the escalation from the Iranian proxies in the region. Secretary of Defense Austin Lloyd has said that US Eisenhower and THAAD battery and additional Patriot BNS to the CENTCOM region are being readied, and this was about 4 days ago, and now USA has finally sent about 900 troops, THAAD battery missiles and Patriot missiles and another warship in that region. And USA has said that this will bolster the US presence, strengthen their military bases in the region. It will also create a deterrence against US forces in the region and deterring a full-scale conflict. And at the same time, it will also provide an additional support to Israel in case of need. USA had earlier last week also USA had shot down a missile in the Red Sea which was launched from Yemen towards USA. There were certain troops who were injured. US Navy has said that Houthi rebels had launched that missile in the Red Sea, where USA tried to shoot it down. And also in the last few days, what USA has been continuously telling the world that it doesn't want the war between Israel and other nations to escalate into full-fledged conflict in the region. But at the same time, US is preparing all possibilities. Many warships have been sent into the region. High quality guided precision missiles were sent to the region, and there is a preparedness for any eventuality that US forces might see in that region. Meanwhile, Syrian war continues to go on. There are multiple factions in Syria who have been supported by many countries, including USA, Russia, Iran. We have seen USA siding along with the rebel forces. Then Russia and Iran are backing the Al-Assad regime. So there are certain geographies which is controlled by the rebel forces. Then there are certain geographies controlled by the Assad forces, and these geographies keep changing with the ongoing war. Sometimes some faction take advantage of the situation. But then there are rebel factions, and there are numerous of them. We have seen some of which they have been receiving varying degree of support from various countries present in the region. Kurdish forces, they are also one of the stronghold, and they have been backed by USA in many ways. Then there are presence of Islamic groups, ISIS as well. We have seen USA and other nations fighting against the ISIS. At peak of ISIS, it has captured swath of Iraq and Syrian land. Then there are international involvement also. Sometimes Turkey government also gets involved. We have recently seen Israeli government striking Aleppo airport. Major cities in Yemen have been attacked by these countries. So the situation in Syria always remains very fluid in the last 1 decade, at least since the launch or since the beginning of the civil war that has started in Syria. But with the latest the latest strike of US forces into that region, it will remain to be seen whether this is going ahead towards a full-fledged escalation, where the countries like Iran, Syria, Russia and the other country present in the Middle East region could also get dragged into this conflict, or this is just a preparedness from the USA side, as it has said, and a deterrent in the region that will ensure that the wars does not escalate to a full-fledged conflict, and the situation remains where it is right now. US missiles have targeted some eastern part of Syria, which were used by Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces, and this is the latest that is happening in Syria, and the US military forces have termed these missile attacks as a way of self-defense, and they were conducted at two facilities in eastern Syria, where the Iranian IRGC, the Iranian guards, are using these facilities to support Syria's government right now. And this is also happening in the wake of in the last 1.5 weeks, several attacks have happened on US forces present in the area, and with the latest escalation that one can witness happening in Middle East, US is also trying to send about 900 US troops that will be deployed in CENTCOM, and they are not going to Israel, by the way. And 16 attacks that USA has faced in Iraq and Syria in the last 10 days or 10 to 15 days has been a reason why USA is deploying another warship also in the region, sending about 900 troops, sending THAAD batteries, patriotic missiles and other weaponries that could not only defend US forces in the region, but also can provide a deterrence in the region. That is what US government has been saying. Meanwhile, the situation in Syria and in Middle East remains very fluid. There have been multiple attacks on US forces in the last few days, and in one of those attacks, about 21 US personnel were injured also. And these responses that USA have been doing, our US side has saying that these are because of the escalation from the Iranian proxies in the region. Secretary of Defense Austin Lloyd has said that US Eisenhower and Third Battery. An additional Patriot BNS to the CENTCOM region are being readied, and this was about 4 days ago. And now USA has finally sent about 900 troops, Third Battery missiles and Patriot missiles and another warship in that region. And USA has said that this will bolster the US presence, strengthen their military.
Welcome back, and we continue to keep our focus on that conflict in West Asia between Israel and Hamas. And the latest updates which are coming in is that there's one rocket that has fallen in that has affected a local residential area in Tel Aviv. 3 people have been injured. There are reports coming in that this was a residential area, a residential complex where the strike was made. There are reports and images telling us that this could have been a major attack, but it has been averted, and no major casualties have been reported so far. Civilians, of course, in this war have come under direct threat and attack. Abhishek with us on the broadcast. Abhishek, what are the latest details coming in from Tel Aviv?
Well, we know that several rockets are fired by Hamas almost on every day basis in Tel Aviv, and many of them are tackled by the Iron Dome system of Tel Aviv. Few of them do fall on the territories. This latest incident that has happened did also such incident where the rocket hit down and it has targeted one residential building. Not exactly known as far as what is the kind of injuries or any casualties has happened or not. But we do know that one of the rockets has fallen in Tel Aviv, which is the business center of Israel. And more details are still awaited, whether it was the blast rockets that was that came out of the city, or it was a few rockets that has fallen on the city. But the picture is very scary, and they do tell that the building has.
All right, Abhishek, we'll continue coming back to you. We'll just try and fix that audio problem, but these images tell you the story of what exactly happened. A rocket landed at a residential building in Tel Aviv, and reports are coming in of certain local residents who have been injured in this area. So far, there are no confirmed report of any kind of casualty. This was a Hamas rocket that fell in Tel Aviv at a local residential area. And the latest images tell you that how the rockets and missiles are being fired at civilian locations. We have spoken about the casualties that have been reported from Gaza, about 7,000 people dead, and Israeli casualties have also been very high after that attack that was carried out by Hamas on the 8th of October. It is being called the 9/11 moment for Israel, and the kind of escalation that we continue to see from the side of Hamas as well will only ensure that this battle doesn't end anytime soon. World wants the conflict to come down, but the two sides, Israel and Hamas, have shown no signs of this conflict really dying down or coming down in the next few days. The hostage situation in the Gaza Strip, of course, is a worrying trend. I want to cut across to my colleague Siddhant and get more details on the story. Siddhant, tell us more.
Well, yes, that's right. So this is what our colleague Abhishek is bringing for us, that one of the Hamas rockets has fallen in Tel Aviv, and perhaps we have less details on this development taking place in Tel Aviv, because it is very rare that rockets from Hamas fall in Tel Aviv, because by the time they come down, or perhaps they can hit the target before that, Iron Dome, the air defense system of Israel, which is perhaps considered as one of the best in the world, stops them, or perhaps keeps Tel Aviv protected. And that is what is the power of Israel. But if this has happened, perhaps it will require investigation, and also let the authorities in Israel come out officially on this particular development, what exactly happened, and from where was the rocket fired at Tel Aviv. So that is also something which they have to come out and confirm that has it to do with the failure of Iron Dome, or at the same time multiple rockets were fired. So that is something which with the government of Israel, IDF, and perhaps the authorities have to clarify and confirm. But right now we're getting to know, and Abhishek is bringing this story for us, that one of the Hamas rockets has fallen in Tel Aviv, something very rare, and perhaps something which is directly hitting the capital city, Tel Aviv. It's not a capital city, but perhaps the most important city in Israel, because most of these countries don't recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So that is also so. Tel Aviv is the safest city and perhaps the most important city of Israel. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Siddhant, for getting us all those details. We'll continue getting you all the latest reports and updates about that attack that happened in Tel Aviv. Right now, shifting our focus to this news coming in from Qatar, where a court sentenced 8 former Navy officers to death. They've been accused of espionage on behalf of Israel. The Indian government has said that they're going to make all the legal and diplomatic efforts to ensure that the former Navy officers get all kind of possible assistance, which is there. Here in India, there are various politicians from the opposition camp, including Dr. Shashi Tharoor, who have raised this issue. What exactly are the charges? How was the trial conducted? What was the quote-unquote due process that was followed? A lot of it is behind the curtains. This was not a transparent trial or a case that was heard in Qatar. And the details of what lies in the public domain are very, very sketchy. What are the legal options that India can exercise in the days to come will depend on the ICJ jurisdiction, and more importantly, if India has any kind of bilateral treaty with Qatar that can help us in this entire legal process. But of course, resort to international courts and tribunals is one option that India can look at. Let's listen into some reactions coming in.
I'm deeply shocked. I think it's a matter of anguish that this is happening. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it becomes indispensable that the government does what is necessary. Qatar is a country we have decent relations with. We have an ambassador there. They have an ambassador in Delhi. This entire case has been shrouded in mystery since the people were arrested in August of 2022. We cannot accept that Indian citizens can be sentenced to death. For what? We don't even know. The trial was behind closed doors. The sentencing, no one knows the reasons, anything like this. It's terribly shocking and I must say unacceptable. I hope that the Indian government will take it up very strongly with the highest level of authorities in Qatar, and that as a result we will have some satisfactory outcome. This is simply not right.
ये कहना संभव नहीं है जब हम जानते नहीं हैं कि क्या हुआ। जब पूरी बात सामने आएगी तभी कुछ कह सकेंगे। आज हम सिर्फ दुख व्यक्त कर सकते हैं कि ऐसा हुआ है, और हमारे लिए ये मानना बड़ा संभव नहीं है कि उन सैनिकों ने ऐसा कुछ किया होगा जिसके कारण उन्हें कोई दंड दिया जाए। ये तो छोड़िए कि उनको मृत्यु दंड दिया जा रहा है। हमको ऐसा लगता है कि ऐसा नहीं हुआ होगा। अब क्यों ये हुआ, कितनी पैरवी हुई, सरकार की तरफ से क्या होना था, क्या हुआ है, वो जब सरकार बचाएंगे तभी पता चलेगा।
What are the legal options for India that lie ahead? Diplomatic efforts, of course, would be made, but legally speaking, what can be done vis-a-vis the framework of international law? Here are some points that we can put out. The ruling needs to be confirmed by a constitutional court. The highest court in Qatar needs to confirm this ruling. Only then the international jurisdiction really steps in. India will have to appeal against this verdict. Whether India becomes a part of the proceedings in Qatar is a call that India will take at a diplomatic level, but whether they want to take it to an international level is a call that the Union or Home Ministry will have to make. Let's move on and talk about some other legal options that exist. India can seek frequent consular access. Frequent consular access means you can go ahead, talk to the 8 Navy or former Navy officers who have been convicted, talk to them about the case, give them assistance, legal assistance or representation that they may require to go forward in this trial. And India can extend legal assistance, as I said. Back-channel diplomacy with legal aid is a likely option that can be exercised. Major General S.P. Sinha is joining us on the broadcast, getting us more details on the story and his perspective. Major General Sinha, how do you see this entire matter? The fact that there's very little which is known about the manner in which the trial was conducted. It was not a fair and a transparent one. The details are very sketchy in the public domain. But in your understanding, to what extent can Indian government take up the cause?
You see, first of all, let's understand what is the issue at stake. The issue is that 8 naval officers, in which there are 7 officers and there's 1 NCO, non-commissioned officer, who the Qatar government has declared that they'll be hanged. So that is the punishment. Firstly. Secondly, look at the timing. This issue has been going on for quite some time. Why this death penalty has been announced now? Is there any Hamas angle? Is there any, committee of nations of Muslim countries who are trying to exert pressure on India? Is there an attempt to dent the image of India, dent the image of our Honorable Prime Minister of India? These are the issues. First. Secondly, these people were part of training team to Qatar Navy. I'm surprised that Qatar Navy is not aware that submarine details are being leaked out. And what is the guarantee that our people have leaked out the information? Is it not possible that Qatar own people, after taking money, used money from other countries, would have leaked out the information? Thirdly, now let's come to the legal issue. The first thing is consular access, which has been granted, and there's no problem. Second thing, who is the competent authority on whose orders final execution will be done?
Yeah.
It is not the lower echelons of judiciary. It has to be the boss of Qatar. So now the time has come that at diplomatic level, at foreign minister's level, and if need be, at prime minister level, Qatar has respected our prime minister, given him award.
Major General Sinha, so far there has been some criticism that the manner in which, from the opposition quarters, that the manner in which the Indian government has approached the issue so far is not satisfactory. There are leaders like Dr. Shashi Tharoor and various other leaders from the Congress party, Jairam Ramesh, who have spoken about this issue and said that the government has not given due consideration. Do you agree with that criticism, sir?
Not at all. It's a political drama these people are playing. Has Congress forgotten its past? They have been releasing terrorists from India. Pakistan terrorists have been released, and the blame was put on Hindus. This thing that it was a part of Hindu terror. Congress has no moral right to give any comment on the conduct of present government. Firstly, secondly, the issue is being dealt with. The Prime Minister.
All right, Major General S.P. Sinha, thank you so much for getting us all the details and your perspective on this entire story. Let's tell you a bit more about how the trial has gone by, what exactly are the details which are emerging. These former 8 Navy officers have been convicted for spying and espionage. That's the limited detail which is available in the public domain. What exactly is the evidence against them? What are the documents on record? All of that is not known. What is also known is that these ex-Navy officers worked for a training program, and they were training for a private firm. A private firm employed them, and there were services that the Qatar government was taking from these former Navy officers. And despite existence of this kind of a contract and this kind of important training that was imparted by 8 Navy officers, what was the ground to convict them? And why was this entire trial and criminal proceeding really shrouded in so much mystery and so much suspicion? Why were the details not put out to public at large? We'll continue getting you all the details. Let's listen in some voices.
सीरियस बात है। 8 एक्स नेवी ऑफिसर्स कमांडर्स हैं, वो 8 महीने से जेल में है कतार के। आज की बात नहीं, 8-10 महीने से कतार के जेल में है। ये 8 महीने में हमारे सरकार ने या पर विदेश मंत्रालय ने क्या किया, ये सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा है। अगर उनके ऊपर गलत इल्ज़ाम लगाकर उनको फंसाया गया है तो हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ा चिंता का विषय है। उनके ऊपर इल्ज़ाम है कि इजराइल के लिए जासूसी कर रहे थे, लेकिन कोई सबूत नहीं है, कोई सबूत नहीं। और अचानक उनको फांसी और मृत्युदंड की सज़ा दी है। इजराइल और हमास के युद्ध के बाद हिंदुस्तान सरकार की एक भूमिका थी, उसके बाद ये 8 लोगों को फांसी की सज़ा दी है। मुझे लगता है सरकार ने हमारे लोगों की जान बचानी चाहिए, नहीं तो उनका भी कुलभूषण जादव हो जाएगा।
We'll continue tracking this story and much more here on CNN News 18 on the other side of a quick break. Stay tuned.
It will also create a deterrence against US forces in the region and deterring a full-scale conflict, and at the same time it will also provide an additional support to Israel in case of need. USA had earlier last week also USA had shot down a missile in the Red Sea which was launched from Yemen towards USA. There were certain troops who were injured. US Navy has said that Houthi rebels had launched that missile in the Red Sea, where USA tried to shoot it down. And also in the last few days, what USA has been continuously telling the world that it doesn't want the war between Israel and other nation to escalate into full-fledged conflict in the region. But at the same time, US is preparing all possibilities. Many warships have been sent into the region. High quality guided precision missiles were sent to the region, and there is a preparedness for any eventuality that US forces might see in that region. Meanwhile, Syrian war continues to go on. There are multiple factions in Syria who have been supported by many countries, including USA, Russia, Iran. We have seen USA siding along with the rebel forces. Then Russia and Iran are backing the Al-Assad regime. So there are certain geographies which is controlled by the rebel forces. Then there are certain geographies controlled by the Assad forces, and these geographies keep changing with the ongoing war. Sometimes some faction take advantage of the situation, but then there are rebel factions, and there are numerous of them. We have seen some of which they have been receiving varying degree of support from various countries present in the region. Kurdish forces, they are also one of the stronghold, and they have been backed by USA in many ways. Then there are presence of Islamic groups, ISIS as well. We have seen USA and other nations fighting against the ISIS. At peak of ISIS, it has captured swath of Iraq and Syrian land. Then there are international involvement also. Sometimes Turkey government also gets involved. We have recently seen Israeli government striking Aleppo airport. Major cities in Yemen have been attacked by these countries. So the situation in Syria always remains very fluid in the last 1 decade, at least since the launch or since the beginning of the civil war that has started in Syria. But with the latest the latest strike of US forces into that region, it will remain to be seen whether this is going ahead towards a full-fledged escalation, where the countries like Iran, Syria, Russia, and the other country present in the Middle East region could also get dragged into this conflict, or this is just a preparedness from the USA side, as it has said, and a deterrent in the region that will ensure that the wars does not escalate to a full-fledged conflict, and the situation remains where it is right now. US missiles have targeted some eastern part of Syria, which were used by Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces, and this is the latest that is happening in Syria, and the US military forces have termed these missile attacks as a way of self-defense, and they were conducted at two facilities in eastern Syria, where the Iranian IRGC, the Iranian guards, are using these facilities to support Syria's government right now. And this is also happening in the wake of in the last 1.5 weeks, several attacks have happened on US forces present in the area, and with the latest escalation that one can witness happening in Middle East, US is also trying to send about 900 US troops that will be deployed in CENTCOM, and they are not going to Israel, by the way. And 16 attacks that USA has faced in Iraq and Syria in the last 10 days, 10 to 15 days, has been a reason why USA is deploying another warship also in the region, sending about 900 troops, sending THAAD batteries, patriotic missiles, and other weaponries that could not only defend US forces in the region, but also can provide a deterrence in the region. That is what US government has been saying. Meanwhile, the situation in Syria and in Middle East remains very fluid. There have been multiple attacks on US forces in the last few days, and in one of those attacks, about 21 US personnel were injured also. And these responses that USA have been doing, our US side has saying that these are because of the escalation from the Iranian proxies in the region. Secretary of Defense Austin Lloyd has said that US Eisenhower and THAAD battery and additional Patriot BNS to the CENTCOM region are being readied, and this was about 4 days ago. And now USA has finally sent about 900 troops, THAAD battery missiles and Patriot missiles, and another warship in that region. And USA has said that this will bolster the US presence, strengthen their military bases in the region. It will also create a deterrence against US forces in the region, and deterring a full-scale conflict. And at the same time, it will also provide an additional support to Israel in case of need. USA had earlier, last week also, USA had shot down a missile in the Red Sea, which was launched from Yemen towards USA. There were certain troops who were injured. US Navy has said that Houthi rebels had launched that missile in the Red Sea, where USA tried to shoot it down. And also in the last few days, what USA has been continuously telling the world that it doesn't want the war between Israel and other nation to escalate into full-fledged conflict in the region. But at the same time, US is preparing all possibilities. Many warships have been sent into the region. High quality guided precision missiles were sent to the region, and there is a preparedness for any eventuality that US forces might see in that region. Meanwhile, Syrian war continues to go on. There are multiple factions in Syria who have been supported by many countries, including USA, Russia, Iran. We have seen USA siding along with the rebel forces. Then Russia and Iran are backing the al-Assad regime. So there are certain geographies which is controlled by the rebel forces. Then there are certain geographies controlled by the Assad forces, and these geographies keep changing with the ongoing war. Sometimes some faction take advantage of the situation, but then there are rebel factions, and there are numerous of them. We have seen some of which they have been receiving varying degree of support from various countries present in the region. Kurdish forces, they are also one of the.
Let's cut across to some latest news coming in, and this is coming about boosting manufacturing, electronic manufacturing here in India. There's a statement that has come in from IT Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He has tweeted and said, and I'm quoting him right now, Prime Minister Modi's PLI scheme has already propelled India into becoming a trusted and a major hub for smartphone manufacturing and exports. Now, within just 2.5 years, Tata companies will start making iPhones here in India, from India, for domestic and global markets. Congratulations to the Tata team for taking over Wistron operations to give an alternative to the Chinese or the Chinese market manufacturing. India has been one of the major spots that the world is really looking at, and when a domestic company like Tata takes the lead, it indeed is a good moment, and that's what Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the IT Minister, has really said. Pallavi with us on the broadcast. Pallavi, more perspective from you, please.
Yeah, Anusha, you must have heard the Prime Minister say this much earlier also, and this is a pitch which is always coming from government. It's on two grounds. One, of course, we emerge as an alternative to the Chinese hub of manufacturing, so that India completely upstages China, because if any threat comes to our economy or to the world economy, the perception is that the Chinese are selling their products very cheap, completely overtaking, which also gives them that kind of political or a global power. That's one. Second, it is very important to send out a message to the world, which India certainly has been, and the Prime Minister himself has been, that India is a very good investment hub for all the multinationals, for the big tech giants as well. And that's the reason why the Prime Minister in the past, you must have seen, has met up with the Google CEO, Microsoft, so on and so forth, to make the point that while we believe in self-reliance, we also more and more want these kind of products, which are extremely popular in our country, to be manufactured indigenously. It has a rippling effect, because first of all, it makes us self-reliant in that sense. Second, of course, it also generates employment. So I think it's a very, very important development, and certainly in sync with what the PM has been talking about.
All right. Thank you, Pallavi, for putting all of that into perspective and context for us. Let's now move on and get you these exclusive conversations from the poll-bound states. Madhya Pradesh, the battle is not just an electoral battle or any other electoral battle. It's a battle of prestige, both for the Congress and the BJP. Jyotiraditya Scindia, the former Congress leader and the present Union Minister, who is now with the BJP, was one of the key reasons why the Kamal Nath government in the state earlier fell and BJP came back to power. How will the Scindia factor really work in these elections? There are various reports that his supporters are miffed and he's not getting his due. My colleague Pallavi in conversation on all these aspects. Listen in.
This time round, no CM face is being projected by the BJP, and I was told that there's a huge
point. When they talk about dhokadhadi, all of that, what is the reason for me leaving the Congress? On the one hand, you have an enigmatic, powerful leader like Narendra Modi leading the country to never touch before heights. A positive area, a positive energy, a positive impulse. On the other hand, you have a party in decay, a party that is undergoing atrophy, a party that does not know how to attract talent, retain talent, acquire talent.
Despite the Bharat Jodo Yatra?
Besides everything, this is the core of the Congress. You see what's happening in Madhya Pradesh after the tickets? One ex-CM is telling the other ex-CM, मैंने power attorney दे दी है इनको मेरे तरफ से गाली लेने के लिए. This is the highest level in the Congress saying this. I've given a power attorney to you to take galis on my behalf. One ex-CM is telling the workers, जाके पूर्व मुख्यमंत्री के कपड़े फाड़ो. On air. If this is the situation at the highest level in the Congress party inside Madhya Pradesh, I shudder and I shake with fear to think what they will do with the 9.5 crore of Madhya Pradesh population if they ever come to power.
India, I've looked at the posters and I was told this by the BJP that there are 12 faces on the poster and unme se koi bhi ban sakta hai Mukhyamantri. Your name, your picture is very much there. You want to become the CM? Will you say no to becoming the CM?
See again, Pallavi, you again bring, you are, it's almost like I'm playing a tape recorder of your interview of 2018. I told you then, I tell you now, I'm not a person who's after position or post. Yes, I'm hungry. I'm ambitious. I'm hungry and ambitious for development. I'm hungry and ambitious for progress. And that's what I've been trying to achieve in this region and across Madhya Pradesh. In this region, with the patronage of the Chief Minister and the Prime Minister, and across Madhya Pradesh through the two portfolios that I have been entrusted with by the Prime Minister of India. For progress and development, विकास और प्रगति के लिए मुझ में बहुत भूख है. कुर्सी के लिए नहीं, वो भूख कमलनाथ जी और दिग्विजय सिंह जी की है और वो भूख कभी भी समाप्त नहीं होगी.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. As India balances its interests in a world increasingly divided over not one but two wars now, the Modi government is facing another big challenge. A lower court in Qatar on Thursday announced a death penalty to 8 former Indian Navy personnel in an espionage case. These 8 ex-Indian Navy officials have been accused by Qatar of spying for Israel. But the situation is not as simple as just that. The proceedings of the case are confidential and the charges against them have not really been made public by the Qatari government. Even the Indian government is being very careful about talking details in this matter. Thus, the facts or more details are unclear at this stage. The veterans were working for a private firm that provided training and related services to Qatar's armed forces. Qatari officials detained them last year in September along with the owner of the company that they were working in. The owner was released in 2 months, but the 8 former Indian officials continued to remain for many months even in solitary confinement.